Police on Long Island are searching for a serial killer.
We had somebody who's targeting sex workers.
Basically,
the most popular streaming platform in the world, Netflix, is out with yet another unmissable content, a true crime documentary about girls gone missing on Long Island. The upcoming series is titled Gone Girls, The Long Island Serial Killer, based on Robert Kolker's book, Lost Girls, An Unsolved American Mystery. It recounts the famous Gilgo Beach serial killings from the perspective of the victims' near and dear ones. Here's a bird's eye view of the case before you catch the series on Netflix. Before we go into our explanation, we have a very small request. If you like our content, please support us by subscribing to our channel. This is a small click for you, but for us, it means a lot. Thank you. Let's begin.
it's unbelievable. A fifth person, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. None of them Shannon Gilbert.
The incident, a disappearance that led to a trove of crime. In May 2010, an escort named Shannon Maria Gilbert, 23, who was attending to a client at Oak Beach's gated community, located in Long Island, New York, made frantic SOS calls to 911 before she left the man's home. She asked the 911 operator to help her, fearing someone was chasing her. She even knocked on the doors of an elderly neighbor asking for help, and in her state of anxiety, she disappeared in the morning light, as if running away from someone, and that was the last time anyone saw her. When the police arrived, Gilbert had vanished without a trace. An official search began for the girl because, as the director of the docuseries Liz Garbus rightly puts it, these family members were never going to give up. These women knew there was a need to shake up the establishment to get attention for this case. As the police combed through the path she had taken in her last seen location, it led them to something more horrifying: the remains of 4 women of similar physical stature, who were referred to as the Gilgo Beach 4. These 4 were recorded to have disappeared between 2007 and 2010. The search continued along the sprawling stretch of the beach, leading to the discovery of 8 more bodies. To sum it up, within a span of 1 year, from 2010 to 2011, 11 bodies were found in Long Island's isolated South Shore near Gilgo Beach. These discoveries left the community frozen with terror and fear. Shannon Gilbert was found in a marshy area in Oak Beach in December of 2011, but the police wrote off her death as an accident, which was strongly opposed by her family as well as experts working on the case. The Gilgo Beach 4 victims: Melissa Bartolome, Amber Lynn Costello, Maureen Baynard Barnes, Megan Waterman. The victims had too many commonalities between them, depicting the work of a serial killer who was preying on a certain section of a vulnerable lot: the sex industry. Suffolk County Chief of Detectives Dominic Verone said all 4 of them, in their 20s, were small-built and as tall as 5 feet or less, weighing less than 100 pounds. All 4 worked as online escorts. Brainerd Barnes, 25, disappeared in July 2007 from New York City and was the first to disappear. She was last seen coming out of a Super 8 motel. Bartolome, 24, was last seen in 2009, walking out of her apartment in the Bronx. On June 5, 2010, Waterman placed an ad on Craigslist, not known for what purpose, and disappeared from a room at Holiday Inn Express in Hauppauge, which she was sharing with Hakeem Cruz, her boyfriend. On September 2, 2010, Costello sealed a deal of $1,500 for a date with her killer, not knowing this date would be her last one. She was last seen walking out of her home in Long Island on the same date. Other victims: on the morning of November 19, 2000, 3 hunters out in the woods of New York State's Manorville found a disposed black plastic bag held together by duct tape. Inside were the remains of a woman whose hands were cut off from her body. Her right leg was cut from the calf, and her torso and limbs were tied together. It was a bone-chilling visual. Who could be so cruel to kill someone with such ghastliness? At that time, the police had nothing on her to identify her. Almost 10 years later, on April 4, 2011, the Long Island police, who were out in Ocean Parkway busy with their search for Shannon Gilbert and were investigating the murders of the Gilgo Beach 4, discovered the skull and right foot of the same woman found on November 19, 2000. She was identified to be 24-year-old Valerie Mack, who went about her business under the alias Melissa Taylor and was arrested multiple times for prostitution from 1996 to 2000. As per records, she was murdered between September 2000 and November 2000. Mack was the killer's 7th victim. On November 20th, 1993, another woman named Sandra Castillo's remains were found by 2 hunters in an isolated wooded area. She was found lying on her back with her hands over her head and her bare legs spread out. There were several sharp force injuries on her body. On April 11, 2011, the police found another victim of the Long Island serial murders, who was identified as Karen Vergata, earlier known as Jane Doe No. 7. Her partial remains were found from Long Island's Fire Island on April 20, 1996, and was 34 years of age. She went missing on February 14, 1996. Suffolk County District Attorney Ray Tierney confirmed Karen's profession to be that of a sex worker. While most of the remains belonged to women, one belonged to a toddler alongside the mother. Remains of an Asian male were found, dressed as a woman. In 2003, similar to Mac's dismembered torso, another body was found that belonged to 20-year-old sex worker Jessica Taylor. A hand-powered saw was used to cut them up, as confirmed by the authorities.
After Shannon disappeared, police were searching the side of Ocean Parkway, and they learned that this was a bigger case than they imagined.
The investigation and arriving at the suspect. A couple of drawbacks about the case were: 1, it was a cold case, and 2, partial and mutilated remains of the victims were found in various parts of the county, hindering the process of identification of the victim. It became difficult to investigate the case. It took almost a decade for the police to find a pattern in the killings and therefore connect it with the serial killer. However, family and friends of the victims blamed the bias shown towards sex workers in such cases. This was also voiced in the Netflix docuseries director Liz Garbus's interview. Who said she wanted to bring these women to life and make them relatable. They too were someone's daughter, sister, and mother. Unfortunately, the families of these victims didn't have fancy pictures of the victims, and that's why Garbus wanted to show a more personal side to them that was achievable only with an actor. It took decades for the authorities to arrive at a suspect, find the culprit, and sentence the killer. As Garbus said, the strife of the victims' families is palpable. Eventually, it took victim Shannon Gilbert's 911 call that accidentally set the ball rolling. Otherwise, women from this profession would just be dropping dead. District Attorney Tierney said investigators had used genetic genealogy to identify some suspects, since it was so difficult to identify these people in the absence of witnesses or any other evidence. As previously mentioned, at least 11 remains were discovered in Ocean Parkway in Long Island, New York. Despite the discovery of the bodies, the authorities didn't have a suspect. The authorities' first suspect was John Bittroff, also a Suffolk County resident, since his DNA was found in the murders of 2 sex workers in 1993 and 1994. Also, he lived in Manorville, close to where victims Jessica Taylor and Mac's remains were found. He was convicted in the previous 2 cases and sentenced to 25 years for each murder. Later, as the police started gathering evidence on the Gilgo Beach 4 cases, the suspect's pattern of killing veered in a new direction. Years passed, and it seemed like this cold case wasn't going to be resolved until July of 2023. The case took a drastic turn after a task force had been set up to look for the killer. Rex Heuermann, the 61-year-old architect who was a father of 2, was arrested since the authorities found his DNA in 3 of the Gilgo Beach 4 murders. And the 4th was later found to be a victim of Heuermann. He was charged with the murders of the Gilgo 4, as well as the murders of Sandra Castilla and Jessica Taylor. What led to Rex Heuermann? As per the indictment, a strand of hair that belonged to Rex's then preschool daughter, Victoria, was found in the same bag that had Mac's remains. The suspect, the heinous criminal. Rex lived in Nassau County's Massapequa Park. He was married to Asa Ellerup, who is now estranged and has 2 children who are now adults. A commoner, Rex used to travel to Manhattan, where he worked as an architect. Neighbors recall him as a well-dressed man who, like any other working man, was a father and a husband. Your regular next-door guy, who's also murdering people. No one suspected him to have led a double life. How did he prey on his victims? As per the authorities, Heuermann used burner phones to contact these women before butchering them to death and disposing of their bodies in burlap sacks. The prosecutors found a planning document that had a detailed plan on the level of torture, backed with references and noise control, to be done on the victims in captive. District Attorney Tierney explained the term playtime found in the document indicated the victim's level of participation in the torture. For instance, the victim was held and typically tortured over 4 days, as seen in the case of the victim named Jessica Taylor. The 4-day window was decided based on Taylor's phone call to a family member before she died, which was connected to the presence of a pickup truck on the same day at the place where her body was found. The planning document also mentioned the use of pushpins to hang drop cloths, and a hard point that was set on the ceiling depicting suspension bondage. The planning document was a blueprint of Heuermann's method of killing his targets. The level of torture meted out to these women matched the methodology of killing noted in the planning document. The planning document reinforced the shocking discovery of an album containing ghastly crime scene photos of the crime from Rex Heuermann's house. A book titled Death Scenes, a homicide detective scrapbook, which contained a collection of strange crime scene photos by California detective Jack Huddleston, was spotted on Heuermann's kitchen table. Retired NYPD detective sergeant and professor at John Jay College of Criminal Justice, Joseph Giacalone, said the planning document was evidence of the most sadistic side of the criminal, who kept his victims alive so that he could torture them. Although FBI profiler Greg McCrary said it was common for serial killers to torture their victims before taking their lives, the investigation also revealed Heuermann's obsession with the case, who had combed through the internet nearly 200 times, trying to see if the police had made any progress in finding the women or finding the unnamed killer. Some of his searches included why couldn't the police trace the calls made by the Long Island serial killer, or why wasn't the Long Island serial killer not caught? Heuermann's internet searches were also about rape, torture, child sex abuse of women, and grisly pornography. Some of his viewing histories on the internet were about pornographic images that showed breast mutilation and rope bondage tactics, which correlate to the injuries found on Mac's breasts and the rope marks on her body. He also searched for his victims and their families. In January 2024, second-degree murder charges were pressed against Rex Heuermann of Maureen Brainerd Barnes after the DNA evidence connected him to the crime. After 5 months, the cops had enough evidence to charge him for murdering Taylor and Sandra Castilla. The investigators continued to find links to Heuermann in more murders. Heuermann has pleaded that he was innocent, although the evidence against him is pretty damning. He is currently lodged at the Riverhead Correctional Facility in Suffolk County, awaiting trial for murder, which is non-bailable. Marvelous verdict. A case such as this deserves to be told, and Netflix is doing complete justice by coming out with a detailed 3-episode docuseries. Any sane person watching the series or aware of the case would have their eyes peeled to someone like Rex Heuermann, given a punishment of the worst kind. It's the least expected for the families who have not only waited long enough, but also faced prejudices due to their line of work. A composite view on the case that shows all perspectives, including journalists, law enforcement officials, victims' families, and friends, including those of the accused murderer, directed and produced by Liz Garbus, will be premiering on Netflix this March 31st. This is not a binge watch, but a series that will make everyone root for justice. Keep the midnight oil burning to view this series. Until next time, and if you liked our content, don't forget to leave a like and subscribe to us if you haven't already. Have a good one and be safe. Thanks, everyone.